In ancient times, in the kingdom of Arvindor, there lived a powerful and wise king named Arthas. He was beloved by all his subjects, and he ruled justly and fairly. However, there was one person who did not share in the king's popularity, an evil witch named Morgana. Morgana had long been a close advisor to the king, and he trusted her implicitly. However, one day a group of noblemen approached the king with evidence of Morgana's treachery. They had discovered that she had been using dark magic to manipulate the king and bend his will to her own. Upon learning of this, Arthas was furious. He immediately expelled Morgana from the court and ordered her to leave the kingdom. But the witch was not one to be so easily defeated. She vowed that she would have her revenge on the king and his family. And so, Morgana began to plot. She brewed a powerful potion filled with dark and malevolent magic and cursed the king's daughter, the beautiful princess Isadora. From that day on, every night when the moon rose, the princess would transform into a terrifying monster, filled with rage and hunger. The princess was locked in an iron room, deep in the castle's dungeons, to protect her from harming anyone when she transformed. The king and his advisors were at a loss as to what to do. They knew that they could not keep the princess locked up forever, but they also could not risk her harming anyone when she was in her monstrous form. One day, a brave and noble knight named Sir Gareth came to the king with a proposal. He had heard of the princess's plight and offered to help. "Your Majesty," Sir Gareth said, "I have a plan to break the witch's curse on the princess. I have journeyed far and wide, seeking out the wisdom of wise women and powerful sorcerers. I believe I have found a way to lift the curse." The king was skeptical, but he was desperate for a solution. "What do you propose, Sir Gareth?" he asked. "I have learned of a powerful herb called the jasmine flower that is said to have the ability to break any curse. It grows in the far-off land of Candor, across the Great Sea. If I can obtain this herb and bring it back to the princess, I believe it will lift the curse and restore her to her true form." The king considered this for a moment before nodding his approval. "Very well, Sir Gareth. You have my permission to journey to Candor and seek out the jasmine flower. But be warned, the journey will be perilous and the chances of success are slim. Are you sure you are willing to undertake this quest?" "I am, Your Majesty," Sir Gareth replied. "For the sake of the princess, I will stop at nothing to lift this curse." And with that, Sir Gareth set out on his quest, determined to bring the jasmine flower back to the princess and break the curse once and for all. As the dawn broke, the princess slowly regained her senses. She looked around in confusion, trying to make sense of where she was and what had happened. As the memories of the previous night came back to her, she began to cry. "Oh, father, mother, what have I done?" she sobbed. "I remember now, every night when the moon rises, I turn into a monster. I can't control it, and I'm terrified of what I might do." The king and queen, who had been sitting by her side, wrapped her in a comforting embrace. "Oh, my dear Isadora," the queen said, tears streaming down her face. "We had no idea this was happening to you. We thought you were just having nightmares." "We will fix this, my child," the king said firmly. "I promise you, this curse will be lifted." The princess looked up at him, hope shining in her eyes. "Do you really think so, father?" "Yes, my dear. I have sent Sir Gareth on a quest to find the jasmine flower, a herb said to have the power to break any curse. He will bring it back to you, and everything will be all right." The princess's face lit up at the mention of Sir Gareth. "Oh, father, I have always admired Sir Gareth. He is so brave and kind. I am sure he will succeed in his quest." "I have every confidence in him," the king said with a smile. "But I must also warn you, my child, the journey will be treacherous. The jasmine flower grows in the far-off land of Candor, across the Great Sea. Sir Gareth and his companions will face many dangers on their journey." "But it is worth it, if it means breaking the curse," the princess said determinedly. The king nodded. "Yes, it is, and while Sir Gareth is away, we will do everything we can to protect you. You will stay locked in this iron room every night, to ensure that you do not harm anyone when you transform. It is not a permanent solution, but it is the best we can do for now." The princess nodded, understanding the necessity of the situation. "I understand, father. I will be strong and endure this until Sir Gareth returns with the jasmine flower." The king and queen hugged their daughter once more before leaving the room, leaving the princess to her thoughts. As she sat alone, she couldn't help but wonder about the witch who had inflicted this curse upon her. "I wish I could find that wicked woman and make her pay for what she has done," she thought to herself. As it happened, the king was also searching for the witch. He had sent out his best men to track her down and bring her back to Arvindar, to force her to break the curse and punish her for her treachery. But as they searched, they discovered that Morgana had fled to a hostile kingdom, one that would not willingly hand her over. The king was faced with a difficult decision. He knew that he could not let the witch go unpunished, but he also did not want to start a costly and bloody war to bring her back. He consulted with his advisors, trying to find a solution that would not lead to further destruction. As the days passed, the princess waited anxiously for news of Sir Gareth's quest. She prayed for his safe return and for the success of his mission. She knew that her fate and the fate of the kingdom rested on his shoulders. As Sir Gareth and his companions journeyed through the treacherous mountains and forests on their way to Chandar, they encountered many dangers. They were attacked by fierce beasts and monstrous creatures, but they did not falter. They fought bravely, determined to complete their quest and save the princess. But alas, despite their best efforts, they were outnumbered and outmatched. One by one, Sir Gareth's companions fell until he was the only one left standing. He fought on, refusing to give up, but eventually, even he was overcome by the monsters. As he lay dying on the ground, Sir Gareth's thoughts turned to the princess. He knew that he had failed in his mission, and he was filled with regret and sorrow. But he also knew that he had given everything he had to save her, and he was at peace with the knowledge that he had done all he could. As his vision faded and his consciousness slipped away, Sir Gareth's last thought was of the beautiful princess, and he hoped that somehow she would find a way to break the curse and live a happy, fulfilling life. News of Sir Gareth's death reached the king and queen through only one soldier, who had managed to escape the battle. The king was devastated by the news, and he grieved deeply for his brave knight. The princess, who had been clinging to hope that Sir Gareth would succeed in his quest, was heartbroken when she learned of his death. She fell into a deep depression, and her psychological state worsened as she struggled to come to terms with the fact that the curse would likely never be lifted. Why did this have to happen? The princess sobbed to her parents. Why did Sir Gareth have to die trying to save me? It's not fair. I know, my child, it is not fair, the queen said, trying to comfort her daughter. But Sir Gareth was a brave and noble man, and he knew the risks when he set out on this quest. He did it all for you, and he sacrificed his life to try and lift the curse. You must remember that and hold on to the hope that one day you will be free. But how? The princess asked despairingly. Without the jasmine flower, how can the curse be lifted? We don't know, my dear, the king said gently, but we will not give up hope. We will continue searching for a solution, and we will not stop until the curse is broken. The princess nodded, trying to find solace in her parents' words. But deep down, she knew that it was unlikely that the curse would ever be lifted, and she resigned herself to a lifetime of loneliness and isolation. Desperate to find a solution for his daughter's curse, King Arthas of Arvindar sent a messenger to the hostile kingdom of Zorak and its cruel king, Zorath. He asked for the witch Morgana to be handed over to him or for King Zorath to help him lift the curse on his daughter. But King Zorath, who had always coveted the kingdom of Arvindar, was not interested in helping. He hated King Arthas and was gloating over the fact that his daughter was cursed. He refused any kind of solution and instead threatened the messenger. Tell your king that if anyone comes here again, they will be destroyed. War is the only solution. If he dares to attack me, I am waiting for him. King Zorath stood beside the witch Morgana, who was proud of the curse she had inflicted and was more than happy to protect herself. She knew that as long as she was with King Zorath, she was safe from the wrath of King Arthas. King Arthas knew that he was no match for the kingdom of Zorak, which was stronger and more powerful than his own kingdom of Arvindar. He also knew that if he attacked, he would likely be defeated. But he also knew that he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. The curse on his daughter was tearing him and his kingdom apart, and he had to find a way to lift it. As he sat in his throne room, deep in thought, the queen approached him with a concerned look on her face. "My love, what are you going to do?" she asked. "You can't go to war with the kingdom of Zorak. It would be suicide. And yet, we can't just sit here and do nothing about the curse on our daughter." King Arthas sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "I know, my dear, but what other options do we have? The witch Morgana is protected by King Zorath, and he refuses to help us lift the curse. I am at a loss as to what to do." King Zorath of the kingdom of Zorak had always coveted the kingdom of Arvindar, ruled by King Arthas. Despite being weaker in terms of army size and equipment, Arvander was known for its impregnable fortresses that were nearly impossible to penetrate. King Zorath knew that if he wanted to conquer Arvander, he would have to find a way to lure King Arthas into attacking him. He knew that King Arthas would not let his daughter suffer under the curse forever, and he was confident that he could defeat him in a battle. "We will wait for King Arthas to come to us," he told his minister. "When he attacks us with his army, we will go out and defeat him at the gates of our castle. And then we will go to Arvander and conquer it. They will be left without soldiers or a king." King Arthas was a just and fair ruler, and he loved his people deeply. He didn't want to risk their lives or sacrifice them for the sake of his daughter, so he became deeply depressed and retreated to his room, not knowing what to do. News of the princess's curse had leaked to the people of Arvander, and they knew that the king was hesitant to go to war with the kingdom of Zorak. But they also knew that the princess was greatly loved by everyone, and they were determined to do whatever it took to lift the curse and save her. So the people of Arvander gathered together and decided to go to the king and plead with him to fight against King Zorath and get rid of the witch Morgana. They knew that their chances of victory were slim, but they were determined to do everything in their power to save the princess. When King Arthas came out onto the balcony to address his people, they erupted into cheers and shouts of encouragement. The king was touched by their loyalty and love for the princess, and he knew that he couldn't let them down. "Thank you, Hun people," King Arthas said, his voice choked with emotion. "I know that you are willing to risk everything to save the princess, but you must understand the seriousness of the situation. The kingdom of Zorak is stronger than us, and we will likely be defeated if we attack them." "We don't care, Your Majesty," shouted one of the people. "We will win because we are right, and because we will never back down from saving the princess." The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, and King Arthas knew that he had no choice but to agree to their request. He gave the order for the army to be prepared to attack the kingdom of Zorak and get rid of the witch Morgana, in the hopes of finally lifting the curse on his beloved daughter. The princess was terrified at the thought of her father going to war, and she begged him not to go. "Please, father, don't do this," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "What if we are defeated? Zorath will come and conquer our kingdom, and he will take my mother as his servant. And what if he decides to kill me? Or worse, what if he makes the witch Morgana remove the curse from me, so that I too become his servant with my mother?" King Arthas's heart ached at the sight of his daughter's fear, but he knew that he had to do what he could to save her. He knelt down beside her and took her hands in his own. "I understand your concerns, my darling," he said softly, "but we have to try. We can't just sit here and do nothing while you suffer under this curse. I will do everything in my power to protect you and your mother, and I believe that with the help of our brave soldiers, we will be victorious." The queen came into the room and saw the exchange between her husband and daughter. She too was afraid of the consequences of war, but she knew that they had to do something to lift the curse. "We are right, and we will be victorious," she reassured the princess. "We must remain optimistic and have faith that everything will work out in the end." Despite their fears, the army set off for the kingdom of Zorak, led by King Arthas. The princess watched from the castle window as they rode off, her heart heavy with worry. She hoped and prayed that they would be successful and that the curse on her would finally be lifted. As the army traveled towards the kingdom of Zorak, Princess Isidora couldn't help but feel guilty for causing all of this trouble. She knew that her curse had put her father and his kingdom in danger, and she wanted to do whatever she could to help. As the first day of the journey came to a close, the princess began to hatch a plan. She called for the guard, who was assigned to watch over her, and presented him with her idea. "I want to join the fight," she told him. "I know that every night when I transform, I become a powerful monster. What if I sneak into the kingdom of Zorak just before nightfall and hide until the curse takes over? Then I can attack the castle and clear the way for father and his army. They can enter after me and defeat King Zorath and the witch Morgana once and for all." The guard looked at the princess with a mixture of fear and sadness. He knew that she was desperate to help, but he also knew that her plan was dangerous and foolhardy. "Your Highness, I cannot allow you to do this," he said firmly. "If I were to help you, it would be a betrayal of the trust that the king has placed in me. And even if we were able to reach the gates of Zorak before your father's army, there is no guarantee that we would be successful. When you transform, you will not be able to distinguish between friend and enemy, and you could end up harming your own father and his army. And even if we were able to sneak in and attack the castle, King Zorath and the witch Morgana are powerful sorcerers. They may have defenses in place that we are not prepared for. It is too risky, Your Highness. I beg of you, please reconsider. Princess Isidora's heart sank at the guard's words. She knew that he was right, but she couldn't stand the thought of doing nothing while her father and his army were in danger. I understand your concerns, she said softly, but I cannot sit here and do nothing while my father is in danger. I have to try and help in any way that I can. Please, I beg of you, just give me a chance. I promise to be careful and to only attack the enemy. Even if I help you with this plan, we must arrive before your father's army, and that is impossible, the guard pointed out. A day has already passed, and it takes 3 days to reach the kingdom of Zorak. Princess Isidora nodded. I understand, but I know a shortcut. I discovered it while I was out hunting. It takes a day and a half to reach the kingdom, and although it is difficult, it is manageable for just a few people. The guard considered this for a moment. But what about me? When the night comes and I'm with you, you'll turn into a monster and attack me. The plan will fail. The princess smiled. I thought of that too. You can bring a large box with us, and when the night comes and I transform, I'll hide in the box until we reach the kingdom. That way, we can control the curse and make sure I only attack the enemy. The guard was convinced by the princess's plan, and he knew that it could potentially help the kingdom's army. Very well, Your Highness. I'll help you with this plan, but we must be careful and make sure we are not caught off guard. As the two of them discussed their plan, they didn't notice the queen standing in the doorway, listening to their conversation. When they finally noticed her, they expected her to be angry and opposed to their plan. But to their surprise, the queen nodded approvingly. We can't just sit here and wait while your father is in danger, she said. We have to do whatever we can to help. I'll bring my sword and come with you. We'll show those who joined forces with the witch that they can't mess with our family. Princess Isidora and the guard looked at each other in shock, but they were grateful for the queen's support. Together, they set off towards the kingdom of Zorak, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. The queen was full of enthusiasm and determination as they set off on their journey, urging the princess and the guard to hurry so that they could reach the kingdom of Zorak before King Arthas and his army. As the first night approached, the queen pulled out a small vial and mixed its contents into a cup of juice. She handed it to Princess Isidora, who drank it down without hesitation. Almost immediately, she began to feel drowsy and fell into a deep sleep. The guard watched with curiosity as the princess transformed into a monster but remained asleep. He turned to the queen and asked, "What was that potion you gave her?" "It seems to have put her into a deep sleep, even while she transforms." The queen nodded. "It's a powerful herb that I use when other sleep aids fail. It helps to induce deep sleep, but it can be dangerous if used improperly. That's why I didn't give it to Isidora in the castle. I was afraid it might harm her." The queen hesitated for a moment before continuing. "But I took a risk this time. I knew that the curse would hinder our journey and that Isidora's loud noises could reveal our presence. So I gave her the herb, hoping it would help us on our mission." The guard nodded, understanding the queen's reasoning. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. "How long will the herb's effects last?" he asked. The queen sighed. "I'm not sure. It could wear off before sunrise. That's why we must be careful." Sure enough, as the first rays of sunlight peeped over the horizon, Princess Isidora began to stir. She let out a loud growl, causing the cage to shake and nearly breaking free. It was only thanks to the queen's quick thinking and soothing words that she was able to calm the princess down. As the sun rose, Princess Isidora's transformation began to recede. She seemed to sense the presence of the queen, even though she could not distinguish anyone in her mutant form. The princess calmed down slightly, and by the time the sun fully emerged in the sky, the curse had lifted. The princess returned to her normal form, relieved to be free of the curse once more. As they journeyed towards the kingdom of Zorak on the second day, the queen suddenly tensed up. "We are in danger," she whispered to the princess and the guard. "There are spies nearby." The princess froze, fear gripping her heart. But the queen quickly sprang into action. She gestured for them to hide behind a large tree and quickly covered the cart and the large box with branches. The spies were getting closer and closer, and the princess was terrified that they would be discovered. But the queen's quick thinking had saved them. The spies passed by, completely oblivious to their presence. Once the spies were out of sight, the queen, princess, and the guard emerged from their hiding spot. "We must hurry," the queen said urgently. "We have to reach the kingdom of Zorak before sunset. This is the decisive battle. The princess nodded, determination filling her heart. They had come too far to turn back now. They would fight to the end to lift the curse and save their kingdom. The queen princess and the guard arrived near the gates of Zorak Castle just as the sun was setting. The queen was visibly worried about the princess, and she couldn't hide her concern. "We will be fine, mother," the princess reassured her. "We will win." As they approached, they saw the Arvindor army approaching in the distance. The princess turned to the queen and the guard. "Go join our army," she said. The princess had already mounted her horse and was riding towards the castle gates. The queen and the guard watched her go, unsure of what to do. "She must have a plan," the guard said. "We should go join the army and wait for her." The princess rode up to the castle gates and was confronted by a group of soldiers. "Stop there," they yelled, drawing their arrows, "or we'll shoot you down." But the soldiers saw that the princess was just a lone girl, unarmed and alone. They didn't think she posed a threat. As they questioned her, the sun set and the princess transformed into a giant monster. The soldiers were shocked by the transformation and couldn't believe their eyes. The princess began to eliminate them with ease, their swords and arrows bouncing off her thick skin. Many of them were frozen in amazement, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. King Zoreth's soldiers were in complete chaos as they fled from the monstrous beast that had invaded their castle. Some even tried to jump off the high castle walls in a desperate attempt to escape. King Zoreth himself was in a state of panic, not knowing what to do as his army scattered in fear. "What is this creature? We must find a way to defeat it." He shouted to his remaining soldiers, but it was no use. The beast was too powerful, and no one seemed to be able to stand against it. Just as all hope seemed lost, the sound of horns and shouting could be heard outside the castle walls. The army of Arvindor had arrived, and they were determined to save their princess and defeat the evil witch. King Arthas approached King Zoreth, brandishing his sword and ready for battle. "We'd have won, you arrogant one," he declared. King Zoreth stared at him in shock, unable to believe that his army had been defeated so easily. "How is this possible?" he asked. "We are the stronger kingdom, with better-equipped soldiers and weapons." King Arthas smirked at him. "We may not have had the advantage in numbers or equipment, but we had something far more powerful on our side: determination and bravery. And of course, a little help from the princess." King Arthas stepped forward and brandished his sword at King Zoreth, declaring, "You will not prevail against us, Zoreth. Your reign of terror is over." With one powerful strike, Arthas defeated Zoreth, bringing an end to his reign of terror. The Arvindor soldiers rushed into the castle, easily defeating the remaining soldiers of Zoreth. They searched room by room, finally coming across the witch Morgana cowering in fear. King Arthas himself approached the trembling witch, his sword drawn. "You have caused my daughter much suffering with your cursed spell. It ends now. Break the curse or face my blade." Terrified, Morgana quickly agreed to break the curse, and with a wave of her hand, the spell was lifted from Princess Isadora. The princess, no longer a monster, rushed into her father's arms, tears of joy streaming down her face. The king gestured to the soldiers to capture the witch, stating that they would bring her to justice and make sure she received her punishment. The queen approached King Arthas and said, "What will you do with the witch? Will you allow her to return to our kingdom after what she did to our daughter? We will not be safe from her evil spells and devious ways, even if she is locked up in prison. She has many tricks up her sleeves that may pose a threat to the entire kingdom." The queen stepped forward, her sword drawn, ready to end the witch and her wicked spells once and for all. The soldiers cheered in agreement, and King Arthas nodded, his mind made up. They could not risk the safety of their kingdom any longer. The witch had caused enough destruction and heartache. It was time for her reign of terror to end. And as the sun rose on a new day, the kingdom rejoiced, thankful for the bravery and determination of their princess and their army. The curse was finally lifted, and peace was restored to Arvindor.